Hey, Shaina.
Hi, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. So excited to bring Rochel Leah on. And I think tonight's it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one.
Yes. You want to talk about what the topic is, or should we
Let's do
bring up?
it. Yeah, I think in a nutshell, it's kind of like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to Judaism and our teenagers. So many of our kids are on their own journeys and not necessarily do they want to follow in the ways that we are raising them. And just because that's the way they feel, it doesn't mean they have to throw everything out. And our job as parents is to be there for them on this journey of them discovering what they want to do in regards to our beautiful, beautiful religion of Yiddishkeit. And Rochel Leah she's gonna share with us her journey and her wisdom. She's such an intelligent,
Yes.
wonderful young woman, and I'm so glad that she agreed to come on and chat with us. And I think everyone who listens is really going to learn a lot from her.
Yes. You came up with such a good title for this. I feel like we need to say it before we begin.
Tell me, I forgot.
You're supposed to remember. I think you called it How Do We Instill Judaism in Our Teenagers Today?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Feel like, okay, so I'm going to bring her on. For those who don't know, Rochel Leah is a Talmud. She's a Torah scholar. She's a Jewish activist slash feminist, if you want to call it. And I'm bringing her on right now. Rochel Leah, hang on.
There she is.
You and I'm so excited to meet you.
Here she comes. Any second, we will see her beautiful, sweet face that we all adore.
There she is.
There she
Hi.
is.
How are
Hello.
you?
So good to see you.
Oh,
Danit.
nice to meet you.
It's so
You've
good
been
to see
texting.
you.
If you've been
Shaina, nice
texting,
to meet
it's
you.
so nice to. Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank God. I haven't seen you in a long time. So good to
How
see
how
you.
old were you when you came? When we lived in Maui, Rochel Leah and her daughter came to her daughter and her sister
Yeah.
came to visit us. How old were you?
I was, I
16?
think 17. I think I was
17?
16 or 17. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I had the
I
best time.
I
Oh,
want
we also.
I what I love most about these lives is that I've never met you. I've been following you and I have spoken with you on texting, and I've seen your work and super impressed with you, by the way,
Thank you.
and so excited that you agreed to come on. And what I love about these lives is that they're so impromptu and we have no idea what direction it's going to take. And I just love to get the conversation started because um, although this is a Teen Talk corner, and I know that you're coming on more of a Torah scholar slash activist. I think that although you don't have teens, I think you have been a teen closer than me and Danit have been a teenager. And I think that coming from that perspective can give so much insight into how do we delicately instill Yiddishkeit into our teenagers today in a way where we're not shoving it down their throats.
Yes. It's so, so important. First of all, thank you for having me on, and it's so good to meet you and see you. That's where you guys are on my screen. I'm happy. I'm so grateful you brought me on because it's true. I was thinking, I was like, I don't have kids, and I also don't have teenagers, but I think I was the most miserable, unhappy, depressed, like broken teenager that ever lived. And I know a lot about teenagehood. Like, that's who I like to work with. Like, my dream is to work, and I do a lot of that. I work with teenage girls because I just like, when you have like one period of your life that kind of like colors the rest of your life, those were my teenage years. And I feel like I have I'm like a teenage whisperer, something like
That's
that. I
what I
think.
call myself, literally the teen whisperer. So maybe we
Actually,
can, yeah, that's what I call myself.
that's so
Yeah.
funny. Oh, I can't take your title. I'm a teen. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, you get the point.
Okay.
I mean, are you comfortable sharing with us anything specific that kind of shaped your teenagehood that you think will be helpful to share? Or do you want to kind of just jump past that part?
No, I could say something, and then you guys can like ask questions or whatever it is. And
We have
I'd love to ask you guys
of questions. We have a lot of questions.
I'm also gonna have to interview you guys because I have a lot of questions too. But there was like, I have so much to say. I don't even know where to start. But the combination of me as a teenager, just I'm telling you right now, it's something mystical that I still talk to God about. Like, why did you put me through what I went through as a teen? It was so like unfair, so painful. I went to like a big school, and no one like saw the pain, or they saw the pain, didn't take care of the pain. My parents, I'm very close to my parents, like obsessed with my parents, couldn't be closer, thank God. They didn't also see that pain. Like no one really tapped into it, or when I shared, I'm skipping parts now, whatever. They took care of things, you know, when I mentioned it. But I'll tell you that I learned so much from my parents, what to do as a parent from my parents. That combination of like the pain, and then my parents just being such good, loving, accepting parents really taught me so much. And I think that like any advice or any thoughts I have, it's from one of those two things, what I experienced and how I grew in relation to the help and support I received from my parents. So that's where I have most of my wisdom on this subject, I think.
What did that help and support look like from your parents?
By the way, if I cry, just ignore it.
Oh no, we encourage it.
I'm a big
and we will cry
yeah.
with you.
Okay,
yes.
good.
The more you share, the better. From my experience and from the feedback that I got from some of our listeners, is that they like when people and our guests get personal. And I just saw somebody commented here, if you can share some details, as much as you're comfortable with, of what you went through, so that you can maybe help someone else if you're comfortable.
Of course. So are we talking about teens and Judaism? Is that the main thing here? Is it teens and Judaism? Okay. So, well, just to give parents like, you know, some kind of like hope, because again, I have never raised kids or teenagers. I consider myself to be a really God-fearing Jew. Like the Torah is my life. That's all I do all day is, let me just turn off my, can you see me? Okay, yeah. I see you. Torah is my life. Teaching Jewish women, Torah and Chassidus, the Rebbe, all that stuff. Danit, I know you're Chabad. Shaina, I don't really know you so well. I'm guessing you care about Judaism because you're here.
Yeah, Chabad. Chabad.
Oh, you're Chabad also. Okay. So the Rebbe. Just to give parents hope, like I went through so much like spiritual turmoil, and like losing my faith and coming in and out of faith, and like wanting to let go of everything, and hating everyone and everything, and hating God, and like pushing everyone away, and being in like the deepest, darkest pit. The mental health was a disaster. Like I don't know how I made it out alive. And this taught me so much, the way that my parents, and you guys can ask me questions so that it's more like direct, like the answers are more direct, but the way my parents handled this, I have a specific story that I replay in my head like multiple times a week, where, and this is where I talk about this a lot on social media, about not stuffing Judaism down teenagers' throats, or anyone's throat for that matter, because anytime, almost any, it's any time, but there are some people who are so disconnected from themselves that this won't happen. If you shove Judaism down anyone's throat, it is inevitably going to be vomited out. It could be in 20 years, it could be 30 years, it can be in 60 years, it could be on someone's deathbed. I actually believe that Judaism cannot touch your soul if it's rammed down your throat. It's impossible. And my parents gave me, I remember calling my dad. I wasn't even a teenager anymore. I think I was like 19, honestly. I don't know if that's not a teenager. 19. 18 or 19. I was already like a young woman. I think I was already in college. And we had gone on this trip to Eastern Europe, and we saw all the Holocaust. And again, I was already a young woman at this point in time. And we went to like 8 different concentration camps, and this is already after the teenage turmoil. Like, again, I was in college, I was living in Crown Heights, and I remember telling my dad, like, he took us on this long trip to Eastern Europe. We saw all this horrific stuff. And again, this is a big thing with teenagers, like not understanding God and not understand, like, you're telling me all this stuff. There's the Torah and there's God, and yet like horrible things happen. And why do people suffer? This is real stuff. that a lot of people don't want to discuss with their kids. And if you have a deep child, and I feel like the parents who usually get into all this stuff with teenagers, they have very deep children, and they're forced to get into this field. Like, they don't have a choice. Sorry, I got distracted by that. The Free Palestine people are here. They can track us down wherever they go.
We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about teens. Go away.
Go away. Where was I? Oh yeah, a lot of those parents are forced to go into this field because they don't have a choice, because their children are very soulful and deep. And this is a very important thing you have to talk about with your kids. After we came back from Eastern Europe, my faith was not only like broken, I can't, again, I'm skipping steps here, but like, it rocked me. Like, it shook me to my core. We were there for almost a month, and also I was very angry at my parents, specifically my dad. It really hurt our relationship. I was like, I had just come back from Israel, my 1 year in Israel. I was in Jerusalem and Mayanot for a year, and like, I was learning Chassidus day and night. Like, I became my own Rebbe. Like, I just sat and learned and learned. I like didn't even realize the world was like spinning on its axis. I just was learning all day and all night. And then that summer, my parents flew me from Israel to Europe to meet them and go on this Holocaust trip. And I just like, I remember telling my dad, you destroyed everything I built this year. Like, it was terrible. Anyways, I got to Crown Heights. I was in college, and I said, I don't think I want to keep Shabbos anymore. I just called my dad. I was like, I'm already like a young woman. I'm supposed to be starting to date eventually. And I was like almost trying to bother him. Like, this is you. This is your fault. You did this to me. Like, I will never forgive you for destroying my faith.
Wow.
We were in a rough patch at that point. And I'll never forget, he said, okay, I fully support that. I'm right behind you.
Wow.
Like, whatever you want to do. I actually really understand that if you're in pain, because no one can really explain the Holocaust, and you do you, whatever. And I was like, actually, I do want to keep Shabbos. Like, it was like just having his support and his love in that moment. I don't know. It was a pivotal moment for me, but that's only one part of the story. Anyways, you can ask specific questions, but
What I find so amazing is that you called him to tell him. You see, I find that a lot of teenagers today are actually hiding the fact that they don't want to keep Shabbos from their parents. So you were already a step ahead, or your dad was, at least, with the fact that you weren't struggling alone.
yeah,
That was something that he built before that moment.
yes.
And that's the part I want to go to, because how can
Communication, yeah.
it get you to come to him?
Right. Creating that safe space where they can come to you and say, I don't want to keep Shabbos. And he was confident enough to say, okay. Because if you think about it, imagine the other response. Excuse me? How dare you say such a thing? Like, what's it going to accomplish, right? Here he's saying, I see you. I hear you. I understand.
Is that happening with parents a lot these days? Is that like a natural
Which one? The
response from
first
parents?
one or the second one?
The second one, like, how dare you? And is that something you guys are seeing a lot?
I don't know. I think nowadays it's a little bit better. I hope. I think most parents today would be like, I think you have twofold. You have the parents that are not being told anything, and they don't know their kids aren't keeping Shabbos because the parents are too afraid the kids are too afraid to talk to them because they didn't build up that connection with them to begin
and
with.
there's a lot of
so you have that
shame.
element. There's a lot of
Shame.
shame and fear, a lot of fear. My parents aren't going to accept me. They're not going to get it. They're not going to understand me. I have to put on this role of who I need to be. So then you have that. And then you have the other end where if the kid does come to the parent, which is rare because most of the kids, I think you felt safe to come to your dad. That's what I'm trying to talk about, is that's the beauty, I think, in the relationship that the two of you had. And I think that for the most part, if a child is coming to their parent to say, I don't want to keep Shabbos anymore, they're not going to be met with, what's wrong with you? Why are you going to do that? The child already knows they're going to be met with that. Because I think most kids are hiding it from their parents. From the parents that I work with, it's already too late.
Yeah.
Never too late.
Well, what I mean to say is that the kids are not coming to them and saying, I'm struggling. Their kids are already struggling.
Yeah.
Your dad did something to get you to do your part and communicate.
So that's such an interesting point. There's a bunch of things I want to say. First of all, I did not say a word to my parents about any of my suffering until I turned 18. So it was, I was very secretive secretive. This is something so important about teenagers, which is why I always call myself the teenage whisperer, because I can spot like mental health suffering and pain from 1,000 miles away. Like in pretty much any woman, but specifically in teenagers, because there is a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of shame. You don't want to open up to your parents. I was blessed to be raised in a home where like my parents are very open. Like we talk about, there's nothing you can talk about. When it comes to Judaism specifically, when it came to like being able to communicate, I think it's really important. I think teenagers are inspired by parents and feel inspired by Judaism, or to open up about Judaism, to communicate about it when they see their parents leading by example, like living by example. Do you know? My parents were always like, I always felt comfortable to talk to them about, well, I mean, there's two parts. Teenagers have to learn to speak. It's not always just the parents, I don't think. That's my opinion. I'm not sure about that yet. But also, when parents lead by example, that inspires teenagers, yes, to either follow in their footsteps, or if they're having trouble in that area, like I don't know if I believe in God, then they can open up more. I was blessed with parents who really led by example. But by the way, I did not speak about anything. Like I was the greatest faker in the whole world, like having all this stuff going on, and my parents knew nothing, like absolutely nothing for a few years. But what do you guys think about that? Like, I think teenagers also, can they be taught to open up? Because it was horrible. I still regret not being able to open up to my parents earlier. You know, it took a few years.
I think it comes with age, but also I also want to say one thing though. I want to ask one thing, not say one thing. My question for you is, what were some of the things, what are some of the signs that you displayed? I feel like maybe that's something I want to talk about here. What were some of the things that you said to me I could spot it a mile away if someone's suffering in silence? What are some of those things that you say that, did your parents pick up on it? Did they know that you were suffering? How come you felt like you had to do it alone?
And I want to add to that question, if they would have asked, if they would have probed, would you have opened up?
Such a good question. If they would have probed, would I have opened up? Yes, I think I would have. And I was I don't want to, my poor parents, but I was very upset about that for a couple of years. Thank God my parents and I have like a very open, still to this day, but always a very open like channel of communication. That's a blessing. But the sign, so if they would have asked, I think I would have. I have to think about it. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go to the first question first about like, what are the signs? Even before I answer that, actually, my mind is going back to my high school years in high school, and it's more than just parents. I feel like I had all the signs of a really troubled teenager in Base Rivka, in school. And I'm not mentioning their name to bash them. I actually think they're a great school, and I heard that they've changed their policies a lot, and schools in general. But I had all of the symptoms and the signs of a really mentally unwell teenager. I mean, like mental health issues, like things that could be dealt with, not mentally unwell and God forbid that kind of way. But there were so many signs, like not having any friends, being completely antisocial. I basically skipped class for 4 years. I did not, my parents had no idea. Well, let's say 3 years. No one had any idea that I was skipping class. My principal sometimes knew. They never got in touch with my parents. I'm still confused to this day. But also I had serious eating disorder stuff, like serious. I don't know if you guys have daughters. Danit, I know you have daughters, but I don't know how old they are now. I know your son.
All
I know how old he
teenagers.
is.
We got
Teenagers.
all teenagers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you have,
I have 3 girls. Yeah.
There were so many signs. And also, what are some other signs? Just not being a part of anything, like in school specific, before I even get to home, because I was such a good faker at home, and I have 8 siblings and we're so close. Like I was able to kind of hide behind my siblings a little bit, because there was so much like balagan all day, every day, with 9 kids in the house, that I could hide behind the noise. But in school, sorry if I'm taking us in a different direction, but in school there were so many signs, and like no one did anything. And I'm so grateful that you guys are tapping into this, which is why Jenny texted me. I was like, yes, I want to do it. Yeah, let's do it. Because teenagehood is such an important time. And also kids, I don't know, God gives us like this depth as a teenager where like you're thinking about everything.
Yeah.
And no teenager deserves to suffer without people noticing and asking them. So I'm so grateful you guys are doing this. But I have to think about the second question a little bit. If they ask me I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow. So what was the breaking point for you that you felt like you can come, like, was it your parents came to you and realized something was wrong, or you got stronger, older? Was there like an event that happened that kind of just unravels? Because I mean, I can relate to something like that with one of my kids, where there was an event that brought to my attention the suffering.
If there was an event, yes. That word unraveling is so important. I think also it comes with maturity. I don't know. See, this is the thing. Like, I don't have advice necessarily like clinical or medical or like, because I'm still figuring out things myself. But when it comes to like events, there was an unraveling. There's a point in time where teenagers, kids, adults, anyone, they can't live functionally anymore. And if you don't get help, you just will like cease to exist.
Correct.
It was that time where I came to my parents. I was like, without your help, I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm not going to be able to live. I'm laughing now. It's not funny. But it took such bravery. And I'm actually still to this day, it's one of my proudest moments. We were actually in Miami on vacation, and I spoke to my dad. My mom was like driving the car. We were on our bikes actually, and she was like following us. And I just told him, I was like, I've been suffering for many, many years. Well, by the way, we spoke before. Like we spoke about stuff, but not in that deep way where I was like, I'm suffering so much and you have no idea. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. Like, you have no clue what's going on in my life. But there was a certain point where my life could not progress anymore. Like, you really hit a wall in life where it's almost like God confronts you. Like, I will not allow you to live like this anymore. Yeah, that was. What was your event with your child? I don't know if they're privacy or whatever.
I actually, it's funny that you're asking that, because I had two things I was going to share. Number one is I actually did get permission from my child.
Oh, wow.
She's now an adult, to share her story, because thank God she's on the other end of it. But also, somebody reached out to me. One of our listeners reached out to me and said, I feel like you and Danit both have this, like, you're sitting on this amazing, experience of stories and experiences that you've shared, and you guys haven't really touched on it, because we're kind of teetering on what's appropriate and what's oversharing, what's not. What do
Yes.
people really need to know, what we went through as
Because it's
moms
their
and how we got
story.
to it's
Right. It's like our kid's story, not
it's our
necessarily not
Yes.
ours.
Yes.
correct. And people who know me as a person know that I have 4 kids, and it hasn't been smooth sailing. And I kind of wanted to, get through it, and at the same time realize I have a gift, and wanted to help other people who are going through something similar. But with my particular situation, it was, I'm going to say the story because my daughter gave me permission. She was in Crown Heights for Chaf Shvat, and I was walking home on a Friday night, and I had an LAPD business card in my front door, like stuck wedged, and said, you need to call this phone number. Your daughter's in the hospital."
Oh, God.
I had never ever used my phone on Shabbos. I had no idea I was even allowed to, but obviously it was b'koach nefesh. I was shaking to get a business card in my door. It was the most, like, my heart's actually racing as I'm sharing the story, because I've never publicly shared it. And all it was that she had smoked marijuana that was laced with fentanyl.
Wow.
And she had a very, very, very bad reaction, obviously. Thank God she's healthy and alive, and they were able to get it out of her system, and she's fine. But it was very, like, on a Friday night, I was like, wait, what? On a Friday night? She's smoking marijuana? Like, the whole thing, just like, my whole world came crumbling down.
Did you
And
know she was suffering before this?
no,
Did you know that it was
nothing,
nothing?
nothing,
I'm telling you.
nothing.
Can I ask you how old she was at the time?
15.
It's unbelievable how a teenager, and I'm not I'm not saying this to incriminate you, chas v'shalom, God forbid, but it's unbelievable. I think it shows how secretive teenagers can be. That there can be a human being living in your home who is suffering or going through something unbelievable, and parents have no idea, like no clue. That was my life, exactly what you just said, for 7 years.
Rochel, the craziest part is that I didn't look at myself at that point. I wasn't saying, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know." I was angry at her.
Wow.
I was angry. I wasn't the mother I was now. This was 5 years ago. Thank God now she's 20 years old. She's engaged. She's in a healthy state of mind. She's Baruch Hashem amazing. She's Shomer Shabbos. Like, it's we have a beautiful story, but thank God. But at that time, I thought, I'm going to tell her what she needs to do. I am going to punish her, and I'm going to bring her home, and I'm going to make her feel bad. And I didn't handle it well.
Wow.
I did not handle it well. And this is why I wanted to start this platform and to get the word out that when our children are suffering, they need us the most.
Right.
That is when we need to look inward and ask ourselves those questions of, how did this child get here, and what's my role here? And I regret what I did, and I've had to make amends with her.
Wow. I had no idea. We were supposed to meet this morning. I didn't know the background behind all of this. That is so powerful. Now I understand where you're coming from. Wow.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet for coffee, didn't it? And it fell through.
I know.
I was like, we'll meet on the live, and it's gonna be all hashgacha pratis.
I still want to have coffee. I still want to get coffee.
I'm here till Motzei Shabbos. So.
But it's interesting how this conversation has taken a turn to, not knowing when your child is in pain. Because my oldest, you remember Schneier, Rochel Leah. Okay, he was like little when you met him. He's like here. He's 18 now. An amazing guy, Baruch Hashem. And also we have a very open very, very open, comfortable relationship. And he was like, you know what? In one of your episodes, you should totally address when your kid looks fine and they're not. And we spoke about a time in his life when he was going through stuff. We moved from Hawaii. That was huge. He went to school for the first time. That was huge. It was so many changes. And he's such an easy, his nature is so easy breezy and sweet. We never ever knew that he was struggling and he was having a hard time. He was like the easy kid. And only much later did we find out that he had a really, really rough time. And I said to him, I was like, what could me and Daddy have done to have been there for you? Like, we didn't know everything was good.
What did he say?
His response was very interesting. He said, in hindsight, he's thinking he kind of had to go through this by himself, because he's thinking, I don't know what you could have done to have made it better. But then I'm thinking maybe a good therapist, there's things we could have done for sure. There are, and thank God he got through it like amazingly. But it's so easy also to blame ourselves as parents. To be like, oh my gosh, how did I not know? I'm sure your parents were like, how did we not know this? But people are good at acting. Even us as adults, we're good at acting when life is really tough. No one on the other side knows what all three of us are going through in our personal lives right now, and for all we know, everything's amazing or things are really tough, but people, we mask, we cover it. So it's interesting how it went there, but I know.
By the way, this is what I said in the beginning of the live, is that every time we bring on a guest, we never know what direction it's going to take. We kind of have a little bit of a briefing. We like to chat with the guest for a few minutes, just to give an idea of questions that have come in or things that we would love to address. And you just never know. And that's what I love about the it's just organic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm thinking about what your son said to you. And I'm also thinking about, before you asked me a question, like if your parents would have asked you, I know, let me go back a second. I even said that maybe teenagers need to learn how to open up. But even before that, I feel like there should be classes or something for parents, markers to look out for. Because yes, adults also mask, but as an adult, you have like tools already, and hopefully in the time of your life, you're a mature adult who can like kind of master life in some kind of way. Teenagers are like, in my like the teenagers I speak to, and in my own experience, like toolless.
Yeah.
Like the pain is all consuming because you don't know what to do with it. So it's just so crazy. I'm telling you, like it boggles my mind that, and this is not to blame any parents, but it's so crazy how good teenagers are at not letting anything slip. Like absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I do agree that they're very good at masking, but I also think that if a mom or a dad are extremely busy and they're
Yes.
not letting on signs and they're not giving you a hard time, sometimes we do miss the signs, and sometimes the signs aren't even there. You know, if I look back to that time period in my life where my child was struggling and I didn't know, she was complaining about going to school. You know, she didn't want to go to school, but she was in school, but not really. Like, you know, just like like really wanting to get out of where she was at, complaining a lot of complaining.
She was
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah, but
Just
I wouldn't her moods, I would say her moods were a little bit swinging a little bit,
Yeah.
but other than that, no, she babysat, she had responsibilities, she was amazing around the house. She was a delight. She was a delight. And I just it's hard to say because sometimes they just do a really good job at masking. And
Yeah.
by the way, there's so much normal within teens, like not wanting to hang out when you go on family outings, like they don't want to come. That's normal for a teenager to not want to
right.
be with the rest of the kids. She never wanted to come with us. I thought that was normal. Um,
Right.
so
Wow.
there
That's
are
Shayna,
the
this is a great point that you're bringing up because a lot of teenage behavior could look like normal teenage behavior, right? I
yeah.
mean, Rochel Leah, I remember in Hawaii.
It.
Oh, it was just getting good. Bring her back in
I'm bringing
quickly.
her. I don't know what happened.
I don't
Here we
know.
go. We're gonna just pick this right back up where we left off because the whole thing just froze. I had to save it, and then it took me a minute.
Oh, hi
Rahalea,
guys. I'm
Okay.
I
back.
don't know this has never happened before. Sorry.
Whatever. It was just getting good.
It's okay.
We're talking about how like typical teenage behaviors it is normal for certain teenagers to act this way, but at the same time, like how do we know when it's something that really has to be dealt with? Like, and then I was going to say, I remember when you came to visit us in Hawaii
Yes.
and we had that conversation about being an introvert, right? Do you remember that?
Wow. I
Do
do
you
remember.
Your
remember?
memory is amazing.
Yes. I just have to say, Danit, I connected with you so much in Hawaii. I talked about you for the week. We kept on traveling around. I talked about you for like the rest of the trip. I just have to put that out there.
Aw.
So open, so warm, so loving, so human. It was like rare in my life at that, like for someone that I'm not related to be like that. Anyways, I had to say that.
Feelings were very mutual, even though you were so much younger than me. I loved our conversation. We had like the OG of the DMC.
We
Does that
did.
sound like cool and hip?
Very cool.
That's funny. I loved. I never heard that line before. That's cute.
I just
We
made it
did.
up, by the way.
Very
I like
cool.
So yeah, so as Schneer's here.
Oh.
So as we were saying, so yeah, so there's normal teenage behavior, right? And you know what? How about, since Schneer's here, can I ask his question that he sent to us to ask you?
Of course. Are you asking me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna, and it's a discuss. You know, we can discuss it.
Yeah.
He said, and this is kind of going back to what we were originally talking about. If
Okay.
children who don't fit into the box, and he's asking this for all teenagers, because Baruch Hashem, we're in a good spot. If children who don't fit into the box need a middle ground to thrive, as opposed to chucking Yiddishkeit away, what are some ways for them to navigate that middle ground? And how can parents guide them through that middle ground or teach them to navigate it themselves without imposing the parents' own Judaism onto them?
That's such a good question.
He's a deep thinker, this one. He
I
really
know.
is.
He gets it from
Really
his
is.
mama. I think so. This goes into a really important topic and concept where it's really important, I think, and this is something I'm so grateful to my parents. They did this in general with all 9 of us. It was never like Judaism is this one way and everything else is unholy and wrong and bad and disgusting. And if you do that, you're wrong and bad and disgusting. Even now, all 9 of us are so different religiously. We're so different, and we were all raised in the same home. There was no there was no box And that is absolutely like priceless. And when I'm so grateful that people, I know that these schools have been open for a little while, but things like Wilkes, Waterbury is not Chabad, but that's also a thing.
Great school.
Yeah.
It's a
Jets.
great
There's
school.
also Jets
Jets. That's,
in
yes.
California.
Jets. It's like, it's almost miraculous. There's different ways to explore being from or exploring God, finding God. There isn't this one way. It can feel so suffocating. And then when it's that rigid, teenagers feel like they can't breathe. And I think they chuck it out when parents do that, or when communities do that, or when schools do that. I felt that a lot in my schooling years, my high school years, where I did not fit in religiously with the girls. I was raised in a very different home. We had all types of people at our Shabbos table every Shabbos. We had like lesbian couples with 3 kids. We had Catholic priests we had these big Shabbos tables, and I just felt so like wrong in Beis Rivka. Again, sorry, Beis Rivka is a great school, but at the time I felt like I couldn't breathe, and it made me think maybe this isn't for me. Like maybe this is not where I should be. I was very lucky that I had a great relationship with like my parent. Like they gave me a great relationship with the Rebbe. I mean, like they gave me a good relationship with Judaism. Like I said, they allowed it to be expansive. So I didn't chuck it out. But
I have a question. You said maybe this is not where I should be. Were you referring to the school or in your Jewish journey? Like maybe
I think both.
I shouldn't be a religious girl, or I'm in the wrong school.
It was both, but I have to tell you, I've always had an extremely, in the deepest, darkest pits of my life, I've always been very attached to the Rebbe, like very, very, very attached. Like learning Chassidus, even when I was like, I don't know if God exists. Like I don't know if I want to keep Shabbos anymore. Those were later, but both though, I felt like a total outsider. I felt like I wasn't frum enough. I wasn't like Chassidish enough. I didn't come from the right kind of family in that school setting. And I felt like maybe like it was all of it. Maybe religiosity is not for me. Maybe Judaism is not for me. But at the same time, the Rebbe really anchored me. That's another topic. But definitely the school.
We'll save that for next time.
Yes.
Next episode with you.
Yes.
The Rebbe.
But to answer your son's question, it's almost like he answered it himself. There is that middle ground. There's so many. By the way, when you go to Israel, don't you ever feel like this? Look how many Jews there are. There are like women who aren't covering their hair, but they're wearing skirts and like they're holding a gun. I don't know. There's so many ways. And
women who cover their hair and wear pants in Israel.
Exactly. Yeah. There's either or. There's both. There's so many. So just acknowledging there is a middle ground is everything. You let your child explore.
It's not even a middle ground. There's like this huge area of the middle ground. It's not one middle ground. There's so much in the middle.
True.
But that's why I love the topic of like Danit started off in the beginning. It's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you see a teen struggling with their Yiddishkeit, it's like, how do we navigate through those years of, okay, you're struggling with religiosity. How do we keep them wanting to stay connected to their roots at the same time? Because a lot of times they get religion shoved down their throats and then they just don't want to do with anything. And they become anti-Israel. They become
everything.
They just don't want it. It's like almost like a religious trauma that comes over them, so that it's almost like repulsive to them.
I think it's really just, I'm almost afraid of saying this because again, I'm tentative because I don't have my own kids, and God willing, when I do have teenagers, I wonder how I'm going to handle it. I really think it's love and communication. When you just completely envelop your child with love and acceptance, I am your mom no matter what. You can hate Israel, you can hate God, you can hate Judaism, you can hate everything. You're my baby still. Like there's nothing in the world like that. So the reason I'm tentative to say that is I can't imagine how hard that is. Imagine your child, like, I don't know. I don't even know, I've seen videos and I follow a lot of people who talk about this where it's really dire situations. Like the child is really going through it. So I know that that's hard to do as a parent. You want to save them, but I think when there is that acceptance and love and communication, talking about it, why do you feel this way? I'm so open to hearing you. That's what I got from my parents. And it was the glue that brought me back like 5 years later. Wow. Like your child so far, they're suffering so much. Sometimes they don't want to be alive. I was definitely in that place. for many, many years. And the only glue to life is your parents like holding you, I think.
Oh my God.
And anytime a
Like,
parent pushes you away, I think that's like the beginning of the end. And I'm so I can't get over how grateful I am to my parents. By the way, I had a lot of anger towards my parents, and we sat and talked and talked and talked for years. By the way, when we have family vacations, I'm like, I want to talk again. Like, I get upset all over again. Like, why didn't you know? Like, you saw me doing this, and they're like, well, there was 9 of you, you know. But like, we're very honest. But now that I'm older, I can really so grateful. They just like my dad said on the phone, you don't have to keep Shabbos. You're still my daughter. You can do whatever there was no aggression. There was no, that's wrong. And you're bad. And get out of the house. There was nothing like that.
Wow.
And I think that's really important. Also to just communicate about it. Like, why do you hate everything? Why are you miserable? Do you want to talk about it? I'm here for you. Come sit. And even if your child doesn't want to share, ask again and ask again. And that is the glue to bring your child back, because life, thank God, is long. I think it's long. They can come back in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s. Like, it's not just because their pain is happening now, it means it's going to be forever. You need to maintain that connection. I think that's it.
Something that I always found to be very helpful for me was staying curious with my child. Staying curious. And I think that sometimes as parents, we get afraid to be curious because we're afraid to hear what they're going to say, because then we have to actually do something about it. But if a kid comes in and says, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ, our reaction is to be like, but what do you mean? Instead of saying, I want to understand that more. Can you help me understand that better? Tell me more. When did you start feeling that way? What came up for you? The curiosity piece is so imperative in keeping the connection. And
Wow.
I think I know that for me, I was so afraid to be curious as to why she was smoking marijuana. Ask, what made you do that?
right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. I have a question for you, though. This is where it comes in of like, I'm not a parent. How would I handle this? Where's the balance between like, not even just keeping your child safe, but not allowing them to do certain things, having boundaries and rules in your house, and also loving them. Like, I could say, love your child all I want, but I was never in a point, thank God, where I was like endangering someone else's life, or, there wasn't that, you know what I mean? Like, how do you maintain a rule?
That's such a good question. And I think that in the beginning, when it was like the start of my child decline, like her mental health and her behavior, I thought that my rules in my house had to be maintained. And so my rules actually got stricter. My rules got stricter. I thought that I was a better parent if I made my rules stricter, and the behaviors got worse and worse and worse. And I had a parenting coach at the time. I was very resilient as a mom. I feel like I was like 30, maybe 31 years old. I had 4 kids under the age of 10. And
Wow.
I remember thinking, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And I remember finding a woman, and I'm actually going to bring her on as a guest in a couple of weeks after Pesach. I'm not going to say who it is yet because I want to keep it a surprise. And she was like my unspoken parenting coach. And I remember calling her at that point when my daughter was struggling, and she's like, you have to protect your child. You have to protect your child. It got to a point that it was so bad that I realized there was nothing I was doing that was working. When a child is refusing to follow the rules and refusing to keep those boundaries, that's when you have to shift gears. Because a healthy child respects boundaries. A healthy child
Wow.
do that. And she called me that day and she's like, you need Avi Fishoff. And that was when I went through the whole twisted parenting methodology and Mahalik, or whoever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that was for me when I realized what I was doing was actually creating more havoc and destruction in my home.
Wow. Wow. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
So almost like the softer you are with them, the more they respect your boundaries. Is that it?
It was, yes, it just took time and a lot of tears and a lot of, growth on my end on understanding it was more than just being softer. It was more about holding her and really seeing her and really getting to understand what the struggles were. And I was able to help her heal at home. And with Avi's help, I mean, it turned around, I want to say, within months. Like I started to see,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
And Shaina,
incredible.
that goes back to the part that when you have regular teenage rebellion, that kids are just acting up and pushing the boundaries, and then you have kids that are really in pain. They're in so much pain for whatever reason, and it's not about Shabbos. It's that's not what it's about.
No.
So that's where the part that you, Rochel Leah, said, that's where the love comes in and the acceptance and just being there for them. It's not about, that's not the time to be putting up the boundaries and setting up the rules and that's, it's the wrong time. It's the
Yeah,
wrong time with the wrong kid.
Correct.
true. I also think when it comes to like religious stuff, because I know a lot of parents, when their child becomes less frum, that wasn't really my thing in my teenagehood, or at least maybe it was, but no one saw it. I wasn't like doing anything in that way. It was more like a mental health thing. But when it is a religious thing, I think a lot of parents think that they need to do the religious stuff, like the stuff of like, no, we keep Shabbos in this house and we keep kosher in this house. And it's almost like I see, since I came out of the darkness, I see Judaism as something so much bigger than that, something so much more inclusive and human. Like I actually think humanness is holiness. I think when a parent can be human with their child and not just Jewish and religious, I think that's the real Judaism.
Yeah.
Like I think when you can see your child, you birthed them, you raised them, they're your like flesh and blood. When you see what they're going through and you can choose to be human, I think that's the real holiness.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's so holy to be like, no, we keep Shabbos in this house. I'm not judging anyone who does that. But I think the reason it doesn't work is because Hashem and Judaism and spirituality is so much bigger than, like you just said, it's not about Shabbos.
Yeah.
It's not Shabbos. It's being human is holy too. Actually, the entire Torah, and I've employed this a lot in my marriage also, like all of this stuff, I'm telling you, my teenagehood affected every aspect of my life until today, till this very moment. But like even in my marriage, like in my own life, Judaism to me is no longer like a bunch of rituals, and although it includes rituals and commandments and all these things, it's humanity, it's humanness, the ability to see someone and talk about things. That to me is like the holiest you can get.
Yeah.
The connection, the love, that's the real stuff. That's what it's not
that's
about.
That's the real holiness. I really believe that.
And so, yeah, because that, when your question, it was such a good question, because at the end of the day, you know, a healthy, functional kid respects contracts and boundaries and rules. They may push back. There is typical behavior from a teenager that pushes back. But if you can't reason with your child, you need to ask why. Why can't I reason with them?
Yeah, what's going on? There's something more.
There's something going on. This is not about my rules. It's not about that. And I think for you, what you said, interestingly enough, you said you had mental health. It wasn't about Shabbos. A lot of times that just goes hand in hand. A lot of times kids with suffering from mental health, it just falls into, I want to not dress sneakers. I don't want to wear the clothing, I don't want to wear a kippah. I don't want to put on tefillin. A lot of times it's intertwined.
Yes.
And so that's when the mental health issues kind of show, is through religion.
Right.
That's such a good point. You're so right. They're so often intertwined. Yeah. And I see it myself in my later years. It definitely was intertwined.
Yeah.
And I think a good point for parents to know that if they see these signs, because we're talking about like what are the signs that we're looking at when it comes to religion, when we see a child who's slowly not doing things maybe that they used to do or that the community expects from them, it's not a time to beat down on them and say, if you don't do this, then you're not getting that. Or like you said, in this house, this is what we do. It's time to come from the other end and lean in and say, I see you're struggling. I see you're struggling. You don't have to share with me what's going on if you're not there yet, but I am here. We are here, both parents. We're both here together. And when you are ready, we are here. We're not going anywhere. We're on each side of you, holding you.
So beautiful. I think this is the stuff of Mashiach. Like people think Mashiach is like, I don't know, like kashrus and like keeping Shabbat. I mean, it is, all this like the mitzvah stuff, but like this love, this this like emotional intelligence and awareness, I think it's like messianic. I really do.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And we
Because
have it now. We have the awareness to share
Yes. Yes.
and you know what? It's not even that hard. Meaning it's not like we have to like it's this crazy stuff that we have to do, you know? It's literally getting out of our own way, putting our ego and our expectations and our visions of what we thought our children will look like or our lives will look like, and you see your child showing signs that they're in pain. It's time to lean in and
Yes.
say just like your parents. We're going to give them a round of applause. Yay, Rochel Leah's mom and dad.
by the way, they really, I feel like, especially since you were struggling with a mental health issue, it could have gone the other way. And I think because your parents, it's the proof is in the pudding. Because your parents were able to hold you and be there for you and accept you in the unconditional love, that is why I think you were able to come out the other end unscathed. And although when I mean unscathed is meaning, look at you today. Look how far you've come. Look how what a beautiful life you're living, and the outreach you're doing, and the Hasidus you're spreading. I think it's like, yes, it's you. It really is you. But I think your parents really paved that for you as well.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for saying it. It's so nice to hear. And also, it's 100% true. Like I said before, like when your parents lead by example, and they absolutely can lead you to the other side. Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
I hope
They
they're going to
really,
watch this. They're going to feel really
me
good.
too. I've sent it to
Send
them.
it to them
So
when it's done.
I
we
had one
found
more
out.
thing I wanted to
Yeah,
say,
go
but
ahead.
I just forgot it. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. Okay. About parents and then going the other side. Okay. To every parent who has a child that, there's a lot of parents whose teenagers, they're rebellious, they want to stay out late, but they kind of just they kind of like easily go into adulthood. Then there's like us who are trudging through our teenage years and almost don't make it. And then there is something really special about those children. Everyone is special, everyone has their special thing, but for every parent, like your child is deep.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that pain is creating greatness. Like it's like molding something special that will illuminate your child's life forever. And I've seen it a lot, but at the same time, I think that also happens exactly how you said, when you have parents who hold you, who stick with you, who understand you. So it's kind of like the two things are together, but a lot of parents, I'm sure, because my parents at one point, I think they didn't know like how to help me. They were just like, what do we do? Like I remember having a phone call with my mom and my dad. They were driving together, and I was like a puddle. Like I wasn't even human anymore. Like that was the extent of the pain. But parents can know that the deeper the darkness, the more the light. It's going to happen. Your child there is like a crater that was created, and there's only light that can fill that later. It's a real. I really believe that your children are special. All children are special, but they're very deep, and that pain created something beautiful.
Absolutely. Shaina, I think as mothers with teenagers who went through stuff, we can say that you are 1,000. As the teenager, I'm sure you understand that about yourself, but as the mother, as mothers, yeah, absolutely.
You see that with your children.
And the connection you have with your child once they get through that dark side, there's nothing in the world like it. Nothing.
No.
We are going to get knocked off because actually probably not this time, because our Instagram live actually got cut off, so it started fresh from the beginning, and I don't know how to link them together, Danit. We're going to have to figure
that out. I'm the IT person.
Good luck.
So we're actually not going to get knocked off. So if there's any other, there was one question that came in for you, Rochel Leah. Can I read it to you?
Sure.
I don't see it here now. It disappeared. I think it was on the other live. I think someone asked, did you have anybody in your community that you can talk to, and why did you feel like you couldn't go to your parents when you were struggling?
That's such a good question. Did I have anyone in my community? I had my sisters. I have 5 sisters. I'm very, very close to them. But even to them, there's something about teenagers with pain. There's so much shame. And also, we don't understand what we're going through ourselves. So we're erratic, we're moody, we're miserable. Like, misery is not the word. I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. Like, I just thought I was demented and messed up and this is my life and I'm not going to make it. Like, your brain, I don't know. I still, like, whatever. But I think, why didn't I go to my parents? The crazy
What were you afraid of?
thing is, I did go to my parents sometimes, but I was too embarrassed to explain to them the extent of what I was going through.
The shame.
So they never, I guess it was shame. So it's funny, I mean, it's not funny, but I remember having a meeting with my dad about food and my body. I like scheduled a meeting because there was a lot of us, and he used to sit and like smoke his cigar and write his books by the fire. And I was like, I have a meeting with you at like 9, whatever it was. And I told him earlier that day, can I talk to you? And I spoke with him about it. And it's almost like teenagers can hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but I did speak with him, but I don't think I was capable of explaining to him what I was going through. Because I told him how I was feeling. I was like, I'm very unhappy, you know, blah, blah, this and that and whatever. And it just didn't work. And also, I think maybe my parents couldn't have imagined that I was like that miserable. And I think that's why maybe like education is so important, because parents, who said, Danit, was it you, that your child was so happy and so kind and so sweet? Like, I think I was like that. I was very like, I was number 6. I was right in, like, I was sweet. I was cute. I was like, played with my little siblings all the time. And you kind of don't imagine, like, you don't. So I did go to my parents, but I don't think I was capable of explaining what was happening. By the way, when I went to them at 18, when I went to my dad specifically at 18, I finally found the language. I said, I think I have an eating disorder. Like, I didn't even know I had an eating disorder for 10 years, you know? I had no idea. I didn't even know what that was. I just thought it's normal to not eat for like months and months and months. Again, hiding it completely. But I feel like this is why your work is so important, because teenagers, I think, in my experience, don't know how to talk. They don't have words.
You just said it. You said they don't have the language.
They don't have the language. And then parents don't always imagine that their child can experience suffering like that at like 13 years old.
And you don't
like
want to, as a parent.
Exactly.
You do not even want to go there.
Right. And sometimes it's just about education for the parents also. Sometimes they don't know that what to look out for.
Exactly.
Right. They don't know it exists. If you don't know something exists, how do you know what to look out for?
I think that's the most important thing, because teenagers will always be teenagers, but parents can change. Parents can look. Parents can see. Parents can pay attention. And I know life is busy and we all have kids and whatever, but parents can be educated. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody asked how old you are now.
I'm 26.
Okay, so you're really just like you're listen,
You're fresh.
10 years out of this,
Fresh
but
out
you
of
are
teenagehood.
you're closer to teenagehood than I am and Danit.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're here today, because you know what, you're like you're representing strong. You're representing strong, and I think this was so insightful. But I think also it's important for parents to get educated on what things to look out for, because if you don't know what exists, how do you know you don't know what the signs to look for?
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that is such an amazing point.
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Danit, you also said before that Schneier, I think he said that he had to go through it himself, something like that. Another interesting, like, important thing, if there's any teenagers watching this, and by the way, you as women who've been through something painful, because everyone's been through something painful, you'll probably understand what I mean by this. Everyone goes through this, but specifically in your teenage years, I think darkness forces you to face yourself. And for a lot of teenagers, there is that aspect of course, you need your parents' support. And if I didn't reach out to my parents, I really don't think I would have made it. Like, I think my body would have just expired or shut down or something. So it's not completely true, but teenagers really, that's why I love them so much. There's so much power in them. When they're in that darkness, you really meet yourself. Like, everything I do, there's 18-year-old Rochel Leah that lives inside of me 24/7. Like, she's alive with all the pain, with all the beauty, the ugliness, all of it. And it goes back to what I was saying. Like, it might be hard with your teenager now, but they're gonna kick ass later. Sorry.
Oh
They're
yeah,
gonna like.
we've
They're
seen
really
it.
like.
Yeah.
I really mean it. There is something so divine about it. I'm not saying that the pain and the suffering is good, but what your son said is so wise. There is something. This suffering's here for a purpose, for a reason, and I have to also go through it. Like, parents can't save their children. They can support them as they sail that darkness and get through it on the other side.
Absolutely.
Just thought that was an important point.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's our journey as well as parents. It's the teenager's journey, and it's our journey, and we all, God willing, make it to the other side, and we're changed people. We're stronger, and we're wiser, and we're softer, and we're harder. Right? You know, it's actually quite poetic. We're tougher. You know, it's so painful, but once you're through it, you can look back and say it's beautiful. It's you know, it's painful, but when you make it through, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I have a question for you guys. I don't know if you have to leave a second, but is there a way
we'll wrap it up after the question?
Okay. Is there a way, in your opinion, to like prevent this from happening? Like, do you think there's specific reasons that children go through or teenagers go through this? Is there a way to, like, I don't know. What do you think?
It's such a good question.
I asked my therapist
it's $1 million. It's a $1 million question.
I asked my therapist, and you know what she said? She said, if you prevent this from happening, you're preventing your child from growing. You're preventing them from going through their process. Like, how do you prevent it? Keep them in their room and just, you know, like how everyone, you know, there's some kids that are just so much more sensitive and feel the world at such a higher frequency. So when something painful happens, it happens, and they feel it with every fiber of their body. And you can hug them and hold them and be there. Shaina, I don't think you could prevent it.
I think you can prevent it, because sometimes a kid could go through something and it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And it could be it could be a traumatic event that has nothing to do with you. They can go to sleepaway camp and something could happen and it has nothing to do with you. You could warn them and something could still happen. They can have a teacher in school who mistreated them and something could trigger them, and you have no way to prevent it. So the only thing we can do as parents is talk to our children, communicate,
be there,
give them unconditional love and support, have boundaries when they're young, have structure, and know that they can always come to you.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we can't prevent our kids from going through life. I heard something from a doctor, one of a therapist, and I'm afraid to mention him on here because right now he's a little controversial with everything going on in Israel.
We love controversy.
I know.
We love controversy.
He said something so profound. Dr. Gabor Mate, he said something so profound. He said, a child will go through something traumatic in his life, but it doesn't have to be a trauma. We can't prevent our kids from having a traumatic event happen, but if we're there to hold them and support them and be there for them, it won't
see it
be a trauma.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
But it's usually the sensitive ones, the ones who feel it's the deep thinkers. You can't stop a kid from thinking and feeling, and it would be nice to just have, you know, smooth sailing, baby. But I guess when Mashiach comes, maybe that's how parenting is going to be. That's why we'll have like 6 kids at a time.
Yeah.
So, you know,
that's so interesting.
Right? Easy.
Wow.
Easy, you know.
Yeah. Is this what you guys are doing now, educating parents? Because we didn't get our coffee, so I don't know exactly. So, just before you go, what are you guys doing?
So
that's the goal.
Our goal is basically to coach parents. Me and Danit have a little bit of different roles in what we do. Danit calls herself Danit, you tell her what you do and I'll tell her what I do.
Sure. I call myself the unconventional parenting coach because I deal with parents whose kids are really struggling. Like, sounds like your parents, like I would have probably, like what you were going through, like that. just really, stay in their room for days at a time, or don't come home, or the parent doesn't know where the kid is, or, the 12-year-old's not going to school anymore, hurting themselves, lots of really, really, really struggling. And my methods are very unconventional. It's not take the door handle off the door, hide the knives. It's not that.
Wow.
And then Shaina.
So I call myself the teen whisperer, parenting coach. I don't necessarily work with as severe cases. I do have some cases that are severe, but I also work with regular chinuch parenting coaching as well. I will also take on families that try to get into like an Avi Fishoff style, but not necessarily can't get in because their kid is not severe enough in their crisis. And I don't necessarily just I have a full range of parenting coaching that I do. So it could be as minor as struggling in school while they're in school to all sorts of, very, very alarming behavior as well.
Right. And then together, we just thought there's a lot of blanket, approaches that we could share with others, how to, be there for your kids, exactly like what we spoke about tonight. So many other people out there with so much wisdom to share, someone like you, right? We spoke to Simon Jacobson. Like, there's so many people that have so much to share. Let's bring them on. Let's talk about this. Let's share this. Get the conversation going. There's no more shame involved. Your kid is struggling. Don't hide. Let's figure out how to help them. And there's so many different ways to do this. And when you have a lot of heads that are put together, I saw a lot of people over here saying that they relate to you. They're like, oh, Rochel Leah, I'm going to DM you afterwards. Like, I went through exactly what you're going through. And so it's just kind of like getting the conversation going.
And bringing on people that we think are more experienced than we are. We started off with Avi Fishoff. He came on here.
Wow.
I don't know if you got to see his.
He's amazing.
So go to our
Awesome.
YouTube.
Great.
If you go onto YouTube and type in Teen Talk, you'll see we went live with Avi Fishoff. We got, I think, 2,800 views so far.
Wow.
Which was incredible. Yeah.
I had no idea you guys were doing this.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Just started.
We just started a month
good.
ago. You're our fourth guest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I just have
we
to
hope
say,
you're going to come back. We hope you're going to come back, because I feel like there's a lot more to talk about.
Now that I know what you guys are doing, I just want to tell you, really from the depths of my heart, that like a lot of people think the real celebrities are like the Kardashians and the billionaires. To me, you guys are the superheroes in life. You are the celebrities. You are you're the rock stars. I can't tell you, and I don't need to tell you, because you're doing it, how important what you're doing is.
Yeah.
It is like the godliest of the godly. Teenagers need you. I wish that like I could have had more, access to this kind of stuff when I was a teenager. It would have, and I think I could have had less suffering, and that would have been a good thing. I don't think kids need to be suffering. I know we said they're so special. They don't need to suffer,
Yeah.
So thank you for what you're doing. You guys are the real rock stars. You really are. And I'm going to subscribe to your channel right now.
Okay. We're gonna sign off. We're gonna sign off. But it was so nice to meet you. I've been following you, and I love the work you're doing. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Speaking of rock stars and celebrities, yes, you're amazing.
Thank you.
And like every sense of the word. Call us. We're going to speak before, but I look forward to you raising your teenagers. You're going to be amazing. Amazing.
Thank you. I really, really hope so. God willing. Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Nice to meet you guys. Nice
have
to
a happy Pesach as well.
You too. May we
care.
all experience real redemption and freedom. Good night.
Amen. Amen.
Bye.